Hello, I'm Cheryl Waltman, and I plan to give a very brief overview of the emergence of neuroscience in the workplace. Neuroscience is the study of the nervous system. The study's development and structure are highly technical and largely belong to the medical field. But in the simplest of terms, it involves brain development from conception to birth and beyond. Disorders of the nervous system fall under this domain as well. The most cross-disciplinary and widely used part of neuroscience lies within the brain functions, which lead to the studies of why we do what we do and where our leadership interests lie. Neuroscience is an emerging field, but it is by no means new. Brain studies date back to the ancients, Egypt, Greece, and Rome. It was Galen, a Roman physician who studied under Hippocrates, who first connected head trauma with impaired mental functioning. And during the Renaissance and the Middle Ages, René Descartes was the first to theorize about brain physiology, which forced people to think about the brain and its influence on life. In the late 1800s, the microscope appeared on the scene, and with it, Golgi used silver chromate to stain neurons, revealing their structure. And near the turn of the century, Broca discovered certain regions of the brain were linked with certain functions. During the 20th century, Golgi's work and the use of the microscope enabled discovery of synapses and neurotransmission around the 1960s. However, new technological tools were not used until the late 1980s, MRIs and PET scans. The field continues to evolve, and each new discovery leads to the realization that neuropsychology and neuroscience is a highly complex field. All of this leads to the significance of neuroscience in many fields. As it emerges, it becomes apparent that the advances since the 1960s make it possible to study everything about the brain. Technology provides evidence through neuroimaging of the brain during sensory and motor tasks, which enables scientists to understand the relationships. Biology no longer owns neuroscience. Since the brain governs everything we do, the fields of study with interest in brain science are limitless, but include education, psychology, computer science, and leadership. As neuroscience continued to develop, more disciplines found applications, and business has begun to understand and utilize knowledge of how the brain works to motivate employees. Neuroscience has debunked the be-all, have-all paradigms espoused near the end of the 20th century. And the 21st century has produced the knowledge that multitasking runs counter to neuroscience because it can be proven through neuroimaging that it is impossible to multitask effectively. One of the most interesting findings that's gained popularity among business and motivational gurus is that people tend to move away from painful social and/or physical experiences and gravitate toward those that give pleasure. This revolutionary knowledge fueled motivational models, with one of the most prominent being David Rock's SCARF model. It has 5 components: status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And as you can see, there are actions leaders can take that will result in a perceived primary threat or a reward within each component. Effective leaders will capitalize on the primary rewards, bringing pleasure and fueling motivation. My personal advice is don't micromanage and let each employee know they're special and that they fit in. You no doubt will find others that resonate with you. Neuroleadership is the field organizational psychology is most vested in. That's the coin term for the merger between neuroscience and management. Proficiency within neuroleadership means using the tools, functional MRIs and PET images. These tools provide scientific evidence linking leadership actions and subordinate behaviors. Neuroleadership uses brain-based evidence that challenges old paradigms regarding motivation and effectiveness. We now know that subordinate motivation is better achieved through building relationships and other soft skills. Neuroscience offers evidence to fight the fear of change, which is one of the most troubling aspects of the leader-subordinate relationship. Change is a threat. Smart leaders will use positive presentation of the facts and empathy to promote acceptance of changes that come down the pike. As far as the utility of neuroscience within my workplace, the K-12 environment, I believe we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. Brain-based teaching and learning is very far from enjoying universal acceptance in our schools. I believe teaching can't exist until someone learns, so let's consider the learner first. I think it's time for educators to do away with the thought that intelligence is fixed. Far from it. Our brains are hardwired to learn for a lifetime, and that includes the first grader who can't read yet. We know through neuroscience that there are optimal times when our brains are ready to learn certain information or skills. When that window of opportunity closes, it doesn't mean you can never learn the skill, it's just going to be more difficult. This accentuates the term developmentally appropriate. Learning triggers positive rewards in the brain. Our precious little learners need an environment structured to facilitate and iterate success in learning. And remember, physical and emotional health is linked to cognition. If one suffers, both suffer. A few of the implications for teaching. 1, let's educate the whole child, because that's really what we're dealing with. Avoid developmentally inappropriate activities. If it's too challenging, it will stress the child, and a stressed child will not learn. We should use assessment as a tool to plan differentiated learning experiences, and make the classroom a place where the child feels secure with learning experiences that draw them in like a magnet. Many of these educational applications of neuroscience are counterintuitive to the way most districts, including mine, do business. Standardized testing has trickled all the way down to the first grade, where students seem to spend more time on computers taking tests than they do in more worthwhile learning activities. In conclusion, neuroscience is an emerging but not new field because it is not widely accepted in the workplace, from business to education. Yet, we need more professionals to give neuroleadership principles a chance to revolutionize paradigms. As you can see, I used many sources of scholarly information to complete this presentation, but this is just a drop in the bucket. If you are interested in neuroscience and leadership, there is a multitude of literature to investigate beyond those listed. Thank you very much for your attention.